Hi guys, I'm so sorry I can't be here today. I had a family thing pop up that I need to be at today, and I know I haven't gotten to present, so I figured I could just put the videos on here and you all could watch and listen. So first slide overview, I know we've all talked about it in all of our presentations, but I just kind of want to go over it again. So what is the purpose of Erikson's theory? If you see me looking down, I have these notes. So the purpose of his theory was to focus on explaining the psychosocial stages of development, and to kind of describe like our behavior and how it is like the attitudes and feelings that we have towards like our self and towards other people. So there are 8 stages, obviously. So the first 5 were actually based off of Freud's psychosexual stages when it comes to the ages that we're kind of looking at. And then the last 3 is more of Erikson's personal views on development and how the interpersonal attitudes kind of change and adapt from when we are born and to when we die. So each stage discusses a different crisis or developmental task that an individual will face. And every one of these stages involves finding the right balance between positive attitudes and negative virtues that can be developed. But it's healthy when positive outweighs the negative. And then resolution of crisis at one stage helps smooth the way for success in future stages. And then unsuccessful resolution at an early stage might slow progress in a later stage. So in the book, the crisis is kind of defined and initiated by the changing characteristics of a person. So whether that be cognitive changes, motor skills developed, biological maturation or decline, and then also our interactions that we have with others and how their expectations, their behaviors, and their attitudes also affect us. Okay, so looking at our first stage, trust versus mistrust, I got these from the chart in the book. So kind of having an overview so I can compare this stage with mine. So trust versus mistrust, the approximate age is birth to 1 year. So the significant events that happened is a child develops a sense that the world is safe and a reliable place because of sensitive caregiving. The positive attitudes or virtue developed would be hope, trust, and self-worth. And then the possible negative outcome would be fear and mistrust of others. So here is me, little me. The picture to the left with all of the basketballs, you will see that basketball is a common theme throughout my life. So that is my grandpa on my mom's side holding me, and then in the big picture, and then my dad. And then there's also little me with basketball. And then me and my mom and my dad, those are my really prevalent relationships from birth to 1 year. And then a picture of me holding a sippy cup with my sunglasses on, just because I feel like that just describes me now also. So obviously I do not remember really anything from 0 to 1. So I asked my mom some questions. And she talked about how whenever I would cry as a baby, they wouldn't let me self-soothe. They would come and grab me. And I also, I had babysitters, but my parents, especially my mom, would not let me be alone with a babysitter. So I was never left alone with strangers that often, or really at all. And I think this is where my disorganized attachment style, how Bowlby talks about it, kind of starts to kick in because I really trust my parents and I trust my grandparents, but when it comes to other people, especially at this stage, I do not trust, and that definitely goes into my later stages of development. But I do truly feel like I developed hope and trust with my parents and those close to me, and self-worth. I truly always felt cared for. I never really went without, and Yeah, I had a great, from what I hear, a great 0 to 1 year of my life. Moving on to the second stage, autonomy versus shame and doubt. The approximate age is 1 to 3 years. The significant events that happen is the child develops a sense of independence tied to use of new mental and motor skills practiced in a safe environment. The positive attitude or virtue learned would be agency, willpower, and safety. And then the possible negative outcome is self-doubt. So looking at my second stage and me from 1 to 3, so the picture I also had to take pictures of the picture frames. The picture with the brown picture frame on the left, that's me and my grandparents on my mom's side that I love so deeply. And then the 2 pictures on the bottom, I did ballet and gymnastics in preschool, and then always still just had a basketball in my hand. And then my parents and I went on vacation a lot. We went to the beach a lot. So there's me, my mom, my dad, and then my mama on my dad's side, and then me sitting on the beach. So I also don't remember a lot from these ages, so I also asked my mom questions from here. So she talked about how they did the best they could, at allowing me to explore, and to try to be around new things and figure out what I like and dislike. This kind of backfired with going to Disney World and to going to Smokies games, if you all know, like the baseball team. They kind of let me run around wherever, and I gained a fear of mascots. So that would be a downfall. But even so, like, my grandparents were always around, and my parents, so those were definitely like my key relationships. But I was also surrounded with crafts all the time and a lot of different sensory things for me to do. My dad was also a basketball coach, and you will see how this plays into my disorganized attachment style. So a lot of my motor skills were practiced in a gym. I learned how to walk in a gym. I explored a lot during this phase. I might have explored a little too much by myself. There was a lot of times where, like, I would be with my dad at practice and I would, get stuck or fall or something like that. And he was busy and didn't really come to my aid. So it was my job to kind of pick myself up off the floor, figuratively and, actually, and to kind of self-soothe at this age. So I felt alone a lot, and my dad also wasn't around a lot. He was there physically, just not emotionally. I always saw him as coach and not really as dad. So yeah, I think that really started to play into I'm very hyper independent. And I think this starts that cycle. And also that disorganized attachment style again. Because I really had trust with my dad, and this is where it starts to dissipate. But I will say, though, I did find a lot of agency, maybe a little too much, but definitely agency and willpower were the 2 virtues that I gained during this time period. Okay, now we're heading into 3 to 5 or 6. This is initiative versus guilt. So the significant events, the child tries to behave in ways that involve more grown-up responsibility and experiments with grown-up roles. The positive attitude or virtue developed would be assertiveness and purpose. And then the possible negative outcome would be guilt over thought and action. Okay, so here is me. I was a very interesting kid. So as an only child, I really did try to do everything on my own. My parents always said to other people that I was 3 going on 23, 4 going on 24, that kind of stuff. And, so I always wanted to cook. I always, wanted to help. So my mom helped me or let me do that a lot. I helped her cook when, that was safe to do. I set the table. I picked out my own clothes, which I feel like it is pretty obvious and will continue to be obvious as I move through these stages. Also, with my dad still being a coach, he coached high school at this time, and He kind of let me run around with the players all the time, which definitely made me feel grown, and really had me develop my voice, and assertiveness, because obviously with the only child diva that I was at this age, no older girl was going to boss me around. But also during this stage, my attachment style still started to develop a little bit. My dad, cheated on my mom a few times, and the first time was during this age. And also, one thing that I figured out going through my own journey is like how I said, saw my dad as a coach, and he was at basketball all the time, and that was how I saw my dad, was being at basketball. And he also was gone a lot at basketball tournaments, which come to find out that was him sleeping with other people. So learning that now, I really felt like I had to compete with a sport and obviously with other women. It sounds bad, but for my dad's attention and for his love. And he used to be that safe place for me, and I really wanted him to still be that, and he wasn't anymore. And yeah, so, but overall, I did really figure out that I did love helping people. I always wanted to help my mom. I wanted to help the girls at practice, whether it be get the balls out, get other equipment out. So I truly did feel like I was finding my purpose, at least as a 3 to 5 year old, and wanting to help others, and definitely had my voice, as an only child. So now we're jumping into industry versus inferiority, approximate ages 6 to 12. So the significant events is the child needs to learn important academic skills and compare favorably with peers in school. The positive attitude or virtue develop is competence. And then the possible negative outcome would be lack of competence and expectation of failure. Okay, so as Tyler was saying, middle school years are hard. These pictures I look at of myself, they just so describe like who I am, and just makes me laugh. But obviously a couple more basketball pictures. I was SpongeBob for Halloween in 5th grade. I obviously chose that. This is me first day of 6th grade with my Vera Bradley backpack and lunchbox and basketball shorts. So going into my last couple of years of elementary school and going into middle school, I was placed in the highest classes possible, which made me very competitive. I already had that competitive nature in me, just because I started playing basketball at such a young age. But also too, my parents were very hard on me, and they expected A's. B's were okay, but A's were really the standard. So honestly, the negative outcome, or the possible negative outcome of expectation of failure, was never in the cards for me. I was expected to make A's, so I expected myself to make A's. And competence was the virtue that I developed, and is something that I still carry with me, even now. But I will say, I combined with my competitive attitude in sports and in athletics and in school, and also my relationship with my dad, perfectionism was definitely something that I gained that I'm still trying to work on, but definitely this is where this kicked in for me. And also at a very young age, in my head, I had to make good grades because I was going to get a scholarship to go to college. And playing basketball meant that I had to have good grades, because if I didn't have good grades, I wasn't allowed to play basketball. And basketball was my leeway into getting a college education. So a lot of things went hand in hand, and I definitely started to get a lot more anxiety around this age. Even though I wanted to deny it for so long, I started biting on my nails. The thought of taking a test really, really scared me. I remember making a B once in a math class, and I genuinely thought my world was over. But I will say I really got my drive for academics. I started to become very highly motivated, and I still am. But yeah, I also got that perfectionism side that bled not only into athletics, but also into my academics. Now we're looking into identity versus role confusion. The approximate age is 12 to 20 years old. So the significant events the adolescent must move towards adulthood by making choices about values, vocational goals, etc. The positive attitude or virtue developed is identity and fidelity. And then the positive and negative outcome would be inability to establish a sense of self. Okay, so this time of my life has a lot of layers. This is the one I just got out of. I'm 23. So looking at all of these pictures, the top left, that was my first day of my freshman year of high school. The picture below it of me in the Govs uniform, that was my freshman year of basketball in high school. I was the only varsity on freshman. Only freshman on varsity, so sorry. And then there is a picture of me getting baptized. And then I'll continue to talk about the rest of the pictures as we go. But as you see, there's a lot of basketball pictures, and there has been a lot of basketball throughout my entire life, even from when I was born. So my faith really developed during this time. I was baptized in 2015, and saved. But then, I kind of lacked in my faith for a little bit, and my identity was heavily rooted in who I was as an athlete during this time period. And my college experience starting out really rocked my identity. So I graduated during COVID, 2020 senior in high school. I made the decision to go play basketball at Western Kentucky University. And after having a hard year there with COVID, I transferred somewhere closer to home. I transferred to Tusculum University. That's in Greenville, Tennessee. And my first 2 years there were very difficult for me. I truly lost who I was because I lost basketball. I wasn't injured. I just had a coach who really took away the love of the game for me and also the love of who I was. It started out subtle and grew when she knew no one was gonna catch her. I was told every day that I was worthless. I was a waste of space. There was no need for me to be here. That I shouldn't eat. I don't remember a lot from that time. I remember those things just because those are things that have still stuck with me. And I really lost who I was. So this picture on the right of me laying on the ground, there is a caption that says, "Save us, please." That's how we felt every single day. But honestly, I really did lose who I was, but I really gained it back whenever I knew that I was basically forced to figure out who I was outside of basketball, and that's really when my faith grew. And I really had to remind myself, like, I am not these words that this woman tells me. I am who my creator says I am. And I really tried to, every time she said I was worthless, I'd be like, you know what, I'm worth more than jewels. Because that is what my God tells me. And this picture of me in this Grinch costume, I just think it really describes, like, for a long time, I really dulled who I was, just because my voice was really dimmed. And I really lost that aspect of myself. And after getting my identity back in the Lord, I really was like, you know what? I am a weird person. I like to have fun. I like to make my friends smile and laugh, and I like to do weird things. And, we had a Christmas party every year, and so I ordered a Grinch costume because that's who I am. And I really started to get that back. And it really took me losing who I was and losing something that I really loved figuratively for a very long time, to really figure out who I was without the person that has the jersey on. Even though I was still playing, which was a very weird thing for me. But I would say this time in my life was a lot of growth and a lot of learning. Also during this time period, my dad was not my coach anymore. And I didn't really speak to him that much. And my coach really reminded me of my dad during this time period. And I held a lot of resentment towards both of them for that, which is still something I'm working on in therapy. But yeah, a lot of growth, but I definitely know that I figured out who I was and who I am. Lost it, rediscovered it during this period of my life. So moving into the stage of my life that I'm in now, intimacy versus isolation, approximate age is young adulthood. So the significant events is adult becomes willing to share identity with others and commit to affiliations and partnerships. The positive outcome or attitude or virtue that is developed during this time is love and capacity for intimacy. And then the possible negative outcome is fear of intimacy and distancing. Okay, so I have a question mark at the top of this slide because I'm still trying to figure this out. So I'm only 3 years into this stage, but I graduated from Tusculum with my bachelor's degree in May of 2024. I got a bachelor's in psychology with a concentration in behavioral health. And then I wrapped up my athletic career this past year. This picture of me in my jersey is actually me holding a baby picture of me. I think I put it in stage 1. And then a picture of me on my senior night with my mom, my dad, and my coaches. These coaches who came in after my previous coach really changed my life, and really healed the athlete in me. I got rebaptized this past year. I felt like it was really, needed for me, just because who I am at 23 with my walk in Christ is completely different than who I was at 13. And he really met me in the deepest, darkest parts of my life. And I allowed him to, not even allowed him, but he got inserted himself in there. But he has worked so heavily in my life, and just a new journey that I'm on with him, and he really changed who I am. And so I want to include that. I graduated with my Master's of Business Administration this past May from Tusculum. And then I started coaching at Johnson with the women's basketball team. We actually just wrapped up our season, but started doing that, and then obviously got into the counseling program. And I've included these flowers because I'm in my first healthy relationship. So the question that I'm trying to answer throughout the stage of my life is, can I have a fear of intimacy and still be capable of it and still, want that, and still achieve that love of my life, that kind of thing. I've learned that I have friendship intimacy. Like, I find it very easy to share my soul with my friends and be vulnerable with my friends. But I think this is really where my my disorganized attachment style kicks in. Because I feel the safest when I do everything alone. Just because that comes with no judgment, no fear, no one can let me down. But also one thing I'm really learning in this relationship is, do I believe that I'm worth it, that I'm worth this great treatment, and do I deserve it? And in my head, in my heart, I know I do. But with everything that I've been through with my dad, it's kind of like, do I? But it's like, I know I do. But I'm still terrified. I am terrified that I'm going to get hurt. But I cannot allow what I've been through in the past to affect what I deserve in my future. And that is something I'm still trying to work through. So yeah. Okay, so I I just put them on the same slide. The last two stages that Erickson described. So, generativity we've all had trouble with that word for the past couple of days, I don't know. And versus stagnation. So the approximate age is middle adulthood. The significant events is adult wishes to make a contribution to the next generation, to produce, to mentor, to create something of lasting value, as in the rearing of children or community service or expert work. The positive attitude or virtue developed would be care and productivity, and then the possible negative outcome would be self-absorption. And then our final stage, ego integrity versus despair. The approximate age is late adulthood. The significant events would be that adult comes to terms with life successes, failures, and missed opportunities, and realizes the dignity of own life. The positive attitude or virtue developed would be wisdom, and then the possible negative outcome would be regret. So what do I want my middle adulthood and late adulthood to look like, and what do I want to develop? So for my middle adulthood, I really hope that I develop care and productivity. Obviously, there's no pictures or life experiences to add. But I really want to be a wife. I really want to be a mom. I really want to be a great counselor. I want to care for people, and I want to be active in people's lives as a mom, as a wife, and I want to share the gospel. So it's kind of what I want my middle adulthood to look like. And then my late adulthood, honestly, I just want to gain wisdom from, all the successes, all the failures, all the missed opportunities. Because I think there's something to be learned with all of that. And I think a life loving the Lord is not a life wasted. So regardless of the failures, regardless of the missed opportunities, the biggest success that I have is that I know my Savior, and I know who I am, and I get to go see him. So I'm not afraid of dying, because I know that's who I get to go see, and I get to go home. But I appreciate you guys giving this a listen, and for everyone's vulnerability, and for empowering me to be vulnerable as well. Once again, I really wish I could be there, but just have some family things to attend to. But yeah, thank you guys.